Welcome, and thank you for joining us for the webinar on Researching from Home. My name is Vinia Boland, and I'm the State Coordinator for the National History Day in Iowa program. And today we have two special guests joining us to talk about researching from home. So I want to say thank you to our guests, Jessica Ney and Katie Moss from the State Historical Society of Iowa Research Center. Jessica and Katie, do you mind introducing yourselves and chatting with us about what you do here at the State Historical Society of Iowa?
Sure, I'm a librarian here at the State Historical Society, and my name is Jessica Ney, and I do a lot of cataloging and some other research help in the library.
And my name is Katie Moss. I'm also a librarian, and I work primarily with people who come into the research center or give us a phone call or send me an email, people who need assistance navigating our collection.
Wonderful, and we appreciate all the great work you do to help National History Day students. So thank you so much for being with us today. All right, so we are going to talk about researching from home, looking at primary and secondary sources, historical quality. So we're going to talk about historical significance, historical context, short-term and long-term impact. And we're also going to focus on where to find resources as you're researching from home. But first, let's talk about why do we need to research for National History Day. It's your job to become the expert on your topic. Students choose a historical topic related to the annual theme and then conduct primary and secondary research. You're going to look through libraries, archives, and museums, conduct oral history interviews, and visit historic sites to look for information. You're going to use the sources to find and help determine a conclusion about the significance of your topic. It's important that you make a claim to the annual theme. So your topic needs to make a connection to communication in history, the key to understanding. So how do we start researching? Well, we want you to take off that historian hat and put on your detective hat. You're going to become a detective and look for clues on your topic. You can find clues at the library, archives, and museums, or as we mentioned, conduct oral history interviews and visit historic sites. But we want you to remember to only use information that supports your claim. You might find hundreds of sources, but not all the information you find is going to help support your claim or your argument. We want to make sure that the information you're using is supporting and not just a fun, interesting fact. So what I want you to say to yourself as you're researching is this information important to my project, or is it just an interesting fact? So as you start researching, you're going to find two different types of sources, and this is what we want you to focus on. The first one is called primary source. So primary sources are immediate, first-hand accounts of a topic from people who had a direct connection to your topic. So different examples of primary sources are text of laws and other original documents, newspaper reports by reporters who witnessed an event or who quoted people who did. You're going to look at speeches, diaries, letters, and interviews, what the people involved said or what they wrote. Survey data such as census or economic statistics, photographs, videos, or audio that captured an event. The second one is a secondary source. So secondary sources are one step removed from the primary source, though they often are quoted or otherwise used from primary sources. They can cover the same topic, but add a layer of interpretation and analysis. So certain examples of secondary sources are books about a topic, even textbooks in your classroom, like your history textbook, scholarly or other articles about a topic, especially by people who were not directly involved. Documentaries, though they often include photos or video portions that can be considered primary sources. I would recommend starting your research by reviewing secondary sources. Secondary sources can help you understand your topic's historical context and or significance, which is very important for a History Day project. We also want to talk about the historical quality of your project, so I want you to focus on these two H's. So the first one is historical significance. You need to understand a topic's development over time and its influence. So what we're talking about is, what was the impact? We want you to talk about why should we learn about your topic? What's so important for us to know about your topic? The second one is historical context, the appropriate setting in which to understand the subject's time period. So it might include economic, intellectual, and/or sociocultural characteristics of the place and time. So secondary sources can really help you determine your topic's historical context. So what I like to say is make sure to put your judges or the viewer right in the time and place that your topic is happening. We want to make sure we understand what's happening in society, what's happening around that topic that influenced them to do what they did. We also need to focus on short and long-term impacts. So this beautiful photo here of someone throwing a rock into water, there's that big splash, and then you see the ripples. So that big splash is a good visual of what the short-term impact represents. Right when your topic takes place, what is that big splash? What is that big reaction, that first reaction to your topic right after it occurs? And the ripples represent the long-term impact. So years later, how has your topic impacted society? It's always a good idea to have a process for researching a game plan. So let's go over one. Step 1, determine your claim. Why are you trying to prove? Step 1, determine your claim. What are you trying to prove to the viewer? Start working on your project's thesis statement. And we're going to talk about the thesis statement in a couple slides, but this is always a work in progress. Use secondary sources like journals, books, and websites to explore your topic. Secondary sources are a great way to help. Oh, let me start over. Step 1, determine your claim. What are you trying to prove? Sorry, this happens every time. Step 1, determine your claim. What are you trying to prove to the viewer? It's also a great idea to start working on your thesis statement at the beginning of your project. Step 2, review secondary sources like journals, books in your classroom, or websites to explore your topic. To create that historical context, we want to make sure we understand the subject of our topic. Secondary sources are also a great way to locate primary sources. Step 3, you need to have an organized way of saving your information. You will be looking through lots of sources and you will need to create an annotated bibliography for your project. So a great way to start your annotated bibliography is to save your information in one place, cite the source, and write down how you use the source and what information you're pulling from it. You can always go back and make edits or write stronger annotations. Step 4, organize your information into the project. Where will the information go on your exhibit board? Where do you want to list the main event on your website? How will I use this primary source, so let's say a letter from President Lincoln, in my performance? Am I going to have a character read from it? Am I going to be President Lincoln and read it? It's always a good idea to have a plan from the beginning. As I mentioned before, it's important to start your thesis statement at the beginning of your project. The thesis statement is a work in progress, and it should be updated as your research continues and as you build your project. I like to call the thesis statement a roadmap of your project, but I've also called it the heart of a History Day project. This is a very important part of your project, and it's vital that you don't wait till the end to start creating it. When drafting the thesis, make sure to follow the following pit stops. Number 1, keep it short. Thesis statement should hover between 40 to 60 words. Too short and there's not enough information to explain the argument. Too long and too many details have been included. Plus, if the students are creating an exhibit and they only have 500 student-composed words, it doesn't make sense to use up 100 of those words just on the thesis. So keep an eye on your student-composed word limit. Number 2, include all 5 W's. The thesis is the first thing the viewer reads, so we should know immediately who, what, where, when, and also why is this important to learn about. Number 3, theme connection. Judges and teachers need to know how the topic relates to the theme, especially if the topic is obscure, extremely narrow, or isn't immediately clear in connection to the theme words. Clearly state the argument or leave out facts and put in arguments. We don't need to see every detail of the topic in the thesis. Leave those facts for the project itself. What we need to see in the thesis statement is your argument or the point you're trying to make. So here's an example of a thesis statement on an exhibit board. And as you can tell, it's the great focal point of the project. As a former judge, when I approached projects, thesis statements were the very first thing I looked for so that I could figure out what the project was about, what their argument was, and its connection to the theme. So your project should revolve around the thesis statement. All right, now I'm going to turn it over to Jessica Ney, and she's going to walk us through how to visit the State Historical Society of Iowa's website to start your research.
So I'm going to start at the homepage of our website, which is iowaculture.gov. And the first thing you'll click on is this History tab at the top. And then beneath that, you'll click on Research to get to our resources that you can use. On the left-hand side of the page, the first thing I'll show you is the Collections tab. So if you click on Collections, it'll bring up this page that explains all the different types of resources that we have within our collections at the State Historical Society. So the first one you see is the books and periodicals, and those will be the secondary sources that Vinia just talked about. And we also have a big variety of primary resources like state government records and manuscripts and newspapers and photos. So if you click on any of these links, you'll get a description of that collection and the types of things that you might find in there and some more information about our specific collections. But the easiest place to get started will be in our online catalog. So if we go back up to that research page that we started at and scroll down, you'll see this Library Research Center catalog, and that'll take you to where you can start searching. And this will include books, periodicals, newspapers, and a lot of our manuscript collections. And I always suggest that when you start searching, you just use this basic search box and don't worry about the advanced search for right now. Once you get a list of search results, you could narrow it down with some of the filters on the side. So I'll start and just search for library. And you can see that that brings up almost 3,000 results. So we'll want to narrow that down. And on the left-hand side of the page here, you'll see you can narrow it by resource type or subject or authors and creators and things like that. So I'll click on this libraries subject. One thing to keep in mind is that when you use the simple search box like we did, that'll bring up any catalog record that has the word library in it. But if it's important to use the subject filter if you want something that's about libraries and doesn't just mention them. So we'll click on this and get 132 results, which is a lot more manageable than our original search was. And when you click on a result that you think you might want to use, it'll bring up more information about it and show you where to find it. So if you decided that this was something that you wanted to use for your project or that you wanted to get access to, we would just need you to note all of this information, like the title and an author if there is one, and especially this location that will tell us if it's in our library here in Des Moines or in Iowa City, and the call number, which is where we would find it. Since we're currently not open for visitors right now, if you did need access to something like this, you would just send us a request, and we would work with you to get you the information you needed out of whatever resource it might be. So I am going to turn it over to Katie now, and she's going to talk to you about our publications and how you can start your research with those.
Okay, so a lot of our amazing collections are only accessible if you visit the library. But there are a few resources that we can point you to that you can research at home, which is extremely convenient to get things started. So like Jessica showed us, under this research tab, collections, we also see publications. So I'll go back to the research tab here. and you'll see collections, and then you'll see publications. I click on publications, and it will give you a brief description of all of the journals that we've published. I'm going to show you how to navigate these top 2 journals because I find them the most useful, and I think that they will be helpful as you get your research started. The Goldfinch, as it says here, is a publication for young people. I find it so useful to get general information about Iowa history. It will outline trends in Iowa history and give you a general idea about a major event or an important person. Each publication has a particular theme, but you can use this search bar here to look for something that interests you. So I'm going to use the same. I'm going to use the same keyword as Jessica. And it looks like this only brings up one publication, one issue, but I'm going to take a look at it. This will give me some basic information about that issue, but if I want to look at it, I'll click download. From here, I can scroll through this issue of the Goldfinch, and I'm going to take a look at the table of contents here. So this will tell me why it was brought up when I search for libraries. So I'm looking through here and I see the haunted library. Very exciting. I'll scroll down to page 12. And here we find the information on the haunted library. So I read through this article. It doesn't really, it's not super interesting to me, but while I'm here, I can browse through the other topics in this collection, find information on other interesting people and interesting events that I didn't previously know about to even search for. Okay, I'm going to take us back to our publications page, and we are going to search the Annals of Iowa. Now, this is a scholarly journal. It's going to get a lot more specific than the Goldfinch, but this is a great place to search for topics that you're interested in, see what happened in Iowa, events that occurred in Iowa that maybe you didn't know about a topic, related to a topic. It can also be a great place to find primary resources. So I'm going to search here. And use this search bar. The Annals of Iowa has 2 different types of articles. Some are book reviews. So I am going to click on this article. Just like before, I'll press download. And I'll see that this is a book. And this is going to give me an idea about what's inside of that book. If you see this article and you think, oh, this is a great resource, you're welcome to talk to us. We might have this book. If not, we can help you track it down. The other type of article you'll see are historical articles written by scholars about Iowa history and that are published in this journal. So this is something written about the old Capitol Library that is now the Law Library. When you're reading an article like this, I highly suggest looking at any footnotes or works cited. This will point you to the resources that this scholar used to write this article in the first place. So we see here that this person was using looks like probably a manuscript collection, letters from Robert Lucas, and we see that it was, he found this letter at the State Historical Society of Iowa. Not every article is going to be using primary sources from our collection, but it's very likely to happen. And this is a great way to find things that primary sources that you wouldn't know it existed if you hadn't used this scholar's works cited in footnotes.
Thank you so much, Jessica and Katie, for joining us today. We really appreciate you explaining how to start researching from home. Some great resources right here in the state of Iowa and online. If you have any additional questions about researching, finding information, or just want to speak with a librarian, please feel free to send me an email or give me a call. You can also visit us at iowaculture.gov/NHD. Happy researching.